If you had the ability to snap your fingers and thoroughly enjoy your life the way it is right now, however, in that moment, nothing major in your life would shift or change. You would just suddenly begin to deeply enjoy it. Would you snap your fingers? In today's reflection, wherever this finds you, you are actually at this precipice in your life right now where you have within your grasp the ability to deeply, viscerally, and fully enjoy your life from this moment now forward, no matter what the situation is. And you are the one that is currently holding all the cards. Now, it might involve dropping a story or 5. It might involve a certain shift in perspective. But what I'm about to reflect to you today isn't about positive thinking. It's not about bypassing. It's not about trying to fake it until you make it. This is about the power that you hold within your core right now to shift your experience of reality from an authentic, natural place. And together, you and myself and our friends will have the opportunity to remember just how powerful we really are. By the way, I'm Danielle Lynn, your friend in synchronicity, fellow co-creator of reality, and appreciator of rad cats, such as yourself, who are navigating this time and space in the most awesome way that you know how, even if you've had a few tumbles here and there. I know I certainly have. And wherever this message currently finds you, it finds you at a powerful moment. A moment where you are able to give yourself some of the things that you've wanted more than anything else. Let's explore that together if you feel inspired, and see just how much we can choose to give ourselves today. Now, part of what inspired this video was I was contemplating on what was most alive to me about offering these reflections. And the simplest way that I can currently distill this is that something I've directly experienced through playing with and operating intentionally in this field of synchronicity, in this reality, in some of the portals and communities that I host, like the Self-Alchemy Lab or the Portals Awakened Alchemy, is that certain individuals in there, as they have been integrating their own personal power and taking these self-alchemy steps, they have been making leaps in their lives that have materialized in external experiences where, I quote, several of the people share they feel like literal wizards. But here's the thing. People are starting to come together and collaborate on projects, on business ventures. But it's happening at a level of deep authenticity. Because instead of imagining that they have to do it the old way, these experiences and collaborations are coming together more and more so organically. And so, I share this reflection because I imagine that the way you are choosing to create is genuinely organic and natural to you at your source, even as you may be straddling between worlds. The old world through which you've received a certain degree of sustenance or you've understood the mechanics of, and you've made your way through it, with the new world, the one that makes more sense to you because it operates from a deep field of resonance. And for a long time, perhaps that felt more like your inner world. But more and more so, I'm imagining you're noticing, we're arriving at a place where instead of these worlds feeling separate or disjointed, it's almost as though everything is starting to show up right here and right now. And it's one of the reasons why grounding and spending time in nature, being in the observer mode, is going to be some of your greatest allies. because this will help you in meeting actual shifts that happen not only in your life, but shifting opportunities that show up. I am talking about literally experiencing what a version of you 2 years ago would call magic, but it becomes normal in your life because you are starting to operate from a place of deeper trust and coherence within yourself. And as a result, situations and circumstances are just lining up with more and more clarity, because the synchronistic field is not actually constrained by time. There's a few things you're being invited to consider right now. One is that you are not required to operate from your mind as the primary way that you're moving through reality. And the way that that looks like is when you imagine you have to know the entire outcome, or you have to think or plan, or you have to think of all the things that could go right or wrong. That's all mind-based stuff. And so part of you embodying your power is giving yourself permission to have a deep degree of trust in something beyond your mind. Now, this isn't about blind faith per se. This is more about your, I'm going to say, your central operating system. The way in which you move within and relate to yourself and reality. I find that the mind is a very helpful co-creator in the entire system that we have, which includes our heart, our gut, and other aspects of ourselves. But when you give it the lead role of navigating your reality, that's where it starts getting a little wonky. I perceive that that's not its role at all. And rather, the role of navigating your reality might be best pointed to in the heart region. I've mentioned before the assemblage point, and this is the energetic point through which your, we'll call it your auric field, appears to emanate from and move from. This place could be seen as the experience of you as consciousness when you are without thought and you are simply engaged and directly observing and interfacing with the present moment. It's that version of you. If you've ever been on a medicine journey, you might be familiar with that part of yourself, because it's often the part of yourself that is in awe of reality. The part that can simply stare at a tree for hours and be like, wow, magic. Okay? And there is I'll call it a middle way, through which one can still have the mind present, but be operating from this central core self. And the way that that feels in your life is it feels like flow. Because once you're deeply in the space of being all in from operating that way, there really isn't trust involved anymore. You're simply being it. It's almost as though, I'll give you this example. Do you trust, if you can lift up one of your hands, okay, do you trust your hand to lift up? When you decide, oh, I'm lifting up my hand, you don't even think about whether you trust it or not. You just do it. You just be it. And there's a similar quality there when it comes to interfacing in your life from the place of embodied presence. The thing is, there's a part of you that's going to hear that and perhaps go, that sounds wonderful. How do I do it? How do I figure it out? How? That's the mind. There's nothing to figure out. It's actually simply a willingness to not know how. It's a willingness to shift from the part of you that's trying to manage and figure things out into the part of you that's directly experiencing. But it's also about moving from this place within yourself. So one of the fun things that happens when you remember you're operating from the inner locus of focus is you start to understand that life appears to be a lot more, we'll call it holographic, and it is responding to you and the way you are focusing your energy. Rather than imagining the circumstances control you, you are just the witness of the circumstances. Rather than imagining the circumstances are defining you, you get to decide what is the nature of the circumstances. And this is not coming from wishful thinking. Rather, this is coming from how you choose to believe where the power is. When we imagine the power is outside of us, then we are temporarily believing and projecting our own power, our own beliefs, onto the external event, which in turn may temporarily create a feeling of helplessness, which in turn, if we respond to life from that feeling of helplessness, this is how we sometimes create a cycle with life in which we do not feel powerful. And it is a game, maybe not always a fun game, but a game nonetheless, that we sometimes temporarily play with ourselves. But as you remember things like this game, the first step you can take is you can come back into the observer mode. And that's simply being able to observe the situation, no matter how high or low you feel about it. And instead of making judgment calls about this is good or this is bad, or this is right or this is wrong, you can simply start saying, this is. Interesting. Next, I'm going to invite you to understand creating in your reality doesn't require you to get all amped up on excitement before you can effectively create. In fact, some of my most effective creations came from a really neutral place. My ability to discern my choice and simply go all in with it allowed me to effectively navigate both the ease and the challenges that came up once I committed to a path. And in the same way, if there is an experience that you feel alive living, whether it's a certain experience of traveling the world, building a certain business, having a certain amount of money or resource, one of the first steps that I find is to clarify whether or not you think it will result in you being happier than you are now. Because if so, on some level, you have placed your power in a projection of a future moment that says you will be happier here, so let's move towards it. That is one way of creating in reality, but it is a way of creating in reality that often creates a feeling of lack, because in a certain level, you're creating from a place of scarcity. And that scarcity is, in this present moment, I don't actually have the experience of life I want, and I must work or strive or fix in order to arrive there. And I know that there are some people who live that way and still arrive at the moment where they get the thing that they imagine they want. But what I find happens more times than not is when a person who is in dissatisfaction arrives at the moment that they imagine will give them satisfaction, what happens? A lot of times, shortly after the veneer of the experience has faded, after it's become normalized, it's not a new thing anymore, the dissatisfaction creeps in again. Because that is the vibration they practice. Because that is the way they have associated with getting what they want. They imagine to themselves, I must aim for something I don't have. I got to push. I got to strive. I got to ambition to get there. I'm going to offer you a new perspective, if you would like. Because I say this as somebody who has operated in that way myself at a different point in time in my life. How you are approaching your life becomes the pattern and the reality that you create. The greatest treasure we create isn't arriving at a future point. It's remembering how to land in the present moment in a way that every moment is feeling like exactly the adventure you want to be on, even if it has challenges, even if it has unknowns. And we sometimes picture in our mind's eye, well, I will feel that way once I'm here in life or once these things are resolved. But again, that is a trick of perception that sets a person up for always being one or two or more steps removed from genuinely experiencing a sense of satisfaction in the present moment. Because it is actually possible. You can actually experience satisfaction even while being on a quest. You can deeply and viscerally enjoy the journey of being where you are now and moving towards your goal. I'm going to invite you, my friend, to not chase this life in a way that you don't want to perpetuate. If I could sum up the reflection here, the space you created for yourself was an opportunity to take a step forward, and then another step forward, and then another step forward from the place of the reality you're ready to create. Because there's always going to be some kind of challenge. There's always going to be some kind of gift. There will always be something unfolding in this life. Because the challenges rise to the level that you rise, right? If you were, let's say, an ant, then you might feel like big water drops are a challenge. And then you grow into the size of a human, and maybe water drops aren't a challenge so much anymore, but now you got taxes, right? In a similar way, the way that you shift, if you imagine that having a certain thing or being in a certain place in your life is going to fix all your problems, then even if you arrive at that point, I find you will just discover something new. Again, I don't say that to rain on your parade, so to speak. Actually, I'm inviting you to contemplate a parade that thrives, rain or shine, to contemplate a way of life and a way that you're choosing to move through life right now that isn't about just growing something to feed an inner emptiness, that isn't about trying to fix something again and again. But what life in reality would you start to create and cultivate from here if there was nothing else to fix and nothing else to change? And rather, if you met the moment imagining that there was a wholeness within you, and that wholeness included the things that didn't feel whole, that included the things that you'd normally reject or want to change, and you could really land in this present moment, what might you focus on now? What might you allow yourself to grieve? What might you let go of? What might you bring in? Because you are no beggar, my friend. Unless that's fun for you and you want to imagine that, in which case no judgment. But I will reflect to you at the truest level. I do not see a beggar. I do not see someone challenged or someone need fixing. I see a master at play in various degrees of remembering how you can play and what tools are available to you. And as you remember, it's not about learning another technique or fixing another step, but maybe it's about letting go of the idea that something needs to be fixed so you can genuinely meet this moment with new eyes. Then you might realize that you are here and now, all along. My friend, it continues to be such a joy to connect with you. If this is your first time tuning in, I invite you to check out the flow book in the description link. And I would also invite you to check out some of my other links there. I have a sign up for portal experiences so you can be notified when they are live, or you can check out the awesome community in the Self-Alchemy Lab. In all cases, my friend, it's been awesome connecting with you today. I'm looking forward to jamming further in the comments, and may you have a wonderful and resonant now moment.